Welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of DailyDead.com. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jonathan James, and I'm joined today by Bryan Christopher, Derek Anderson, Tamika Jones, and Scott Drebit. Today is all about our listeners. We are doing our listener mailbag episode. It's been ages. It's been so long since we've done a listener mailbag episode. I don't even think Bryan was on the podcast. Am I wrong here, Bryan?
No, I've actually been saying this is our first mailbag episode because apparently I was not here the last time.
Exactly. It's been ages.
I was wondering why he said that.
Yeah, it may have been like the first year we started that we did a listener mailbag. And, you know, occasionally what we'll end up doing is like listener suggestions will turn into an episode or a topic. Or if you email us, obviously we get back, but we don't always get, questions that we can save for an episode. And so we decided that we'd ping our Corpse Club members and our followers on Twitter. And so we have some questions from our listeners. We are going to be asking them for the entirety of the episode, going around the room, and we have some very interesting topics. Some are movie-based, some are not. Some talk about, our time on Daily Dead or Corpse Club. So with that, we're just going to jump into it. And we're going to start with AJ, who asks, what is a film that you wish had gotten a sequel but never did? And what direction would you have liked for it to take had the story continued? And
Friday the 13th.
Well, I was going to start with you, Bryan. So what do you got?
It's not a game show, Bryan.
Yeah. So what do you got, Bryan?
$1, Bob. So this was one it always pops up into my head whenever anyone asks about potential sequels. I don't think we'll ever get it, but I really would have loved a Tragedy Girls sequel. Just the idea of like the sociopath serial killers go to college, I think had a lot of potential. And I really enjoyed all 90 plus minutes of Tragedy Girls and the kind of the anti-hero, but you're also rooting for them because it's kind of one of those things where you're just rooting for their relationship and being okay with the fact that they've also burned down the entire school gym with all of the students in it. So yeah, when they're going off to college, it's kind of this weird bent happy ending, but there's also enough of kind of an open ending there or kind of leaves things open for a sequel. So I really would have liked to have seen what happened when they go to college. Alas, I don't think we're going to see that.
That seems like would have been set up perfectly for that too, right? Like that's the next step, going to college, and then maybe more hijinks ensue, more social media stuff. It just seems like would have been actually like perfectly placed for a sequel there.
And then like I'm picturing it can be like a trilogy, and the third one is they're going for their PhD and they're like plowing through the people that they have to defend their dissertation to or something like that.
Oh my gosh. So you've thought about this
a couple of times. Yeah.
Look, I'm not one to, rain on Bryan's parade.
That's all ever. You do, Scott. So
that's so not true. But correct me if I'm wrong with what those two ladies did. What college or university are they going to that doesn't know who they are?
How do you mean? Like no one knows that they were behind it.
No, I bet I got to watch it again, but I'm sure there's someone who saw them.
No, that's kind of the whole thing. Like they get away with it scot-free. Now that could be an interesting element to, with they kill, what's his face? Jack Quaid's character. His dad could be an interesting kind of like a Loomis character who kind of senses that like there's something off about these girls' stories, and maybe he's kind of, hounding them and on the hunt, and it just kind of comes off as like this creepy college stalker, like old man on campus kind of thing. But he's the only one who knows what they really are. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, at the end, for all intents and purposes, they get away with it. Like I don't think there's anybody that really knows what actually happened.
The sequel you just described was like a cross between Friday the 13th and Girls Night Out, and I'm here for all of it.
With just a hint of Sleepaway Camp 3 with the dad character.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you could have it be like that abrupt where like he's on the hunt, he finds her, and then like they just shoot him.
Yeah. No. You got the green light on this.
I
Go ahead.
There's
get
still
going
time
on
for
it.
this to happen. So
yeah.
Honestly, this is I don't know. You've done your homework, Bryan. This is really good. Let's
make it
some
happen.
phone calls.
I can't help but try to wedge I Know What You Did Last Summer into everything. So it could kind of be like that, where we all think that no one saw them. Although I agree with you, I don't think anyone saw them. But when has that ever kept anyone from like wedging that into a sequel anyway,
Let's
just
throw
to
that
get it
in,
going?
too. Yeah, you
You
got to have
know,
a
like
red
someone
herring.
did see them and then
You
like,
got to have a red herring.
yeah, then they start getting notes like, you thought you got away with it. You're in college, you know?
And it turns out to be that like that nerdy, awkward girl that is it kind of like pops up throughout the movie. Like she is horribly burned, but she survived and she's kind of like out for revenge.
So
Mm.
do you just happen to have like a 30-page treatment just sitting around in a desk drawer somewhere that we
No,
should
Derek.
know about?
Shut up.
That's a yes.
Until I'm done pitching it. No, I don't.
You've got a meeting with Taylor McIntyre tomorrow?
Yes.
Or Tyler, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll get his
damn, I
name
just
right.
ruined our chances.
We're going to get Tim Capello to do the score.
Perfect.
And I want Jack Black to come back in dreads.
Yes. Yes. Stoner Jack Black.
Oh, this is all coming together nicely.
Yeah, this thing's written itself.
I love it. Does it have a title?
Tragedier Girls.
More tragic girls. Tragic 2 girls.
Yeah, can you wedge like the number in there somewhere?
Okay. Don't hurt
I'm
yourself,
trying.
Scott.
Too late.
Scott's bleeding from the ears now.
I pulled a cerebrum.
Okay, well, what about you, Tamika? What do you got for a film that you wish had gotten a sequel but never did?
I'm kind of torn because I just really enjoyed Your Next so much that I just kind of want a sequel, even though I think that story is kind of done. I mean, in a way, I think maybe it did get a spiritual sequel. Ready or Not, maybe.
That's a good pairing. That's a good pairing.
But then I feel like there's a really easy answer. The Final Girls. I mean, it's a parody of slasher movies and slasher tropes. So you have to have a sequel, and I who knows, maybe there's like, no, there's usually not two. I feel like I'm thinking this out now, like thinking it through now.
That's what we do here, man. Just think stuff through. Throw it out.
But I really enjoyed that movie, The Final Girls.
So then how would you, in your sequel, so we have the camp in the first one, what would you do for the second one? Would the setting be different? Would it be an urban setting? What would your scenario be?
Oh, no. I mean, we've got to kind of play this by the book. So, no, same camp, new campers.
I thought it was going to be same characters, different scenario.
Oh, no. We're going to have, same camp. We're going to maybe call it something else, so that like we trick people into thinking, oh, no, there were no tragedies here. No one died. No. It's all good. Maybe call it like, I don't know, camp, Green
Forest
Lake
Green.
or something. Yeah. Yes. I didn't want to like directly rip that off, but hey, we could be like a discount, we could do that even. We could kind of do like a discount situation where we just flat out rip things off. Because again, it's all in good fun and in the spirit of slasherdom. Could do that. But no, I was thinking we would just keep the same location, right? Keep the budget small. Change up the fall guys, the cannon fodder. And then same killer. Maybe his mask's a little messed up because continuity. Yeah. Let's just keep right. Like why try to reinvent the wheel? Let's just keep going.
So here's a question for you. Do you bring back in some shape, form, or fashion Malene Ackerman as the mom, or because this is something that they actually covered not too long ago. They covered the Final Girls on Horror Queers, and they brought up an interesting point of like, if you don't bring the mom, like, where's the story in terms of the conflict? Now, they brought up a good idea of, like, one of the kind of subplots of the movie is all the friendships that were kind of destroyed or badly damaged by the trauma of her losing her mom. So kind of diving into repairing those relationships a little bit. So that's one avenue. Or, you could go full, like, Friday the 13th part 2 and have elements that don't make a lick of sense. Like if they can have an adult Jason come out of nowhere and take over as the killer, you could bring back the mom if you thought things warranted it.
Interesting. Or maybe she could, she could be.
She's the killer.
Ooh.
No, that kills all the goodwill from the first movie. I'd be
That's
pissed
what sequels
if
are
that
for.
happened.
Also true.
Except a large part of the Final Girl's charm is that relationship between the mother and daughter.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That
if you
is
piss
true.
on that, you're kind of giving a big FU, I think, to the fans of that film.
Which means I think we should do it.
I know you do. Brian's like, it ain't my money. What do I care? Let's go. Woo!
No, that's a good point. I don't want to get too greedy. So no, she's got to stay good.
So basically what you're saying is you want to make like a straight up sequel, like a slasher sequel.
Yes.
What you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same killers, same settings, just different victims, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe like a really cool hospital scene. Those are always cool, Now, maybe like because it's referential, it references other slashers. So you gotta keep doing that.
Right. Okay.
That's gonna be in like page 25 of my treatment. All like the cool
15-page
slasher
treatment.
references. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because the original kind of hints that we would maybe see their take on like a horror sequel, like what that would be like to live in a horror sequel. So I think I'm trying to think of like other movies that have, other than like Scream 2, where they are kind of aware they're like living through the rules of a horror sequel. I really don't think there's been as much on that part of it. So I think that would be interesting too.
Oh, I love Scream. Ooh, thank you, Tarek. Okay, this is page 16. Writing this
Possibilities
down
are
on page
endless.
16. Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to Scott. Scott,
Yes, sir.
what's your sequel that never
What's
got
me
made?
pick?
Yeah, what's
What
you
me
pick? Yeah.
Me pick. I know this will be a shock, but I'm going to go for the early 90s.
What?
I know, right? But they trotted out a new villain, a new future icon that could have been if they had continued past the first movie. And of course, I'm talking about Dr. Giggles. You have a new slasher icon right there. It's perfectly set up. You get his backstory in that first movie. It's self-contained, yet it's ready to fly on for another, 10 movies. It didn't do well. And then Larry Drake died. And that's that.
Way to bring down the room, Derek.
Thanks.
Scott.
I know
Just
you
bummed
I'm
myself
used to it
out
being.
there.
I'm used to it being Derek.
I was gonna say
so-
Derek got blamed for this one.
Just
Oh
bummed
my
myself out
gosh.
there. But you know what? Dr. Giggles is just such a great, fun movie, and the way that character is brought to life by Drake, and the one-liners he gets. Clearly, it's based on Freddy, but only slightly more down to earth. He still has comically oversized surgical instruments, etc. But it's just so much damn fun that I think it would be a blast to see that to see future, if we had seen future installments of that.
And I would picture that as just like a string of like direct to video sequels that just kind of like stretched through the 90s. I'm wondering why
Oh.
that didn't happen.
Yeah, more or less. You know what? I mean, in a better time, Larry Drake could have been like a Vincent Price, right? And these could have been like his Fibes movies. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Totally. I mean, that's kind of where part of the spirit of Dr. Giggles comes from anyway. I think a very larger than life theatrical villain and creative deaths. You just swap out your victims, but I think in a different timeline, in a better timeline, Larry Drake, I think, could have been like another Peter Cushing or Vincent Price or Christopher Lee.
And he got to do 2 Darkman movies at least.
Yeah, I was going to say he's kind of got like a mini imprint on the genre between this and the 2 Turns as Durant.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for years I always thought that he was Bub in Day of the Dead.
Just from
so did a lot of people.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be. Wouldn't that be a great
that guy
reveal?
from L.A.
Later?
Law.
That's Howard Sherman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Sherman Howard, depending on where you look, because sometimes it's reversed. Anyway,
mystique.
weird fact.
That's what he gets for being a firsty.
I get it. So, you'd be surprised the number of emails I get that's like, "Hello, James." I get a lot of them.
How can you tell it's in like that dark, ominous tone?
You see,
hello, James. I'm watching you.
It sounded like a Bond movie. I've been expecting you, James.
Yeah, they're all audio emails, apparently.
Yeah.
Growing up in the wake of the Matrix movies, I got called Mr. Anderson a lot. So it didn't matter that I had like a last name. It was just referred to a lot anyway.
That's going to come back though with the Matrix 4. Just you wait, Mr. Anderson.
Well, it depends if
I don't think they're bringing Weaving
Hugo
back.
Weaving was unable to do it, but the virus could live on in a different form, I suppose.
Yeah, somebody else is going to say Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah.
So you have that to look forward to.
Lovely.
I'm not. I'm going to boycott saying Mr. Anderson.
Okay, well,
Ruthless.
the American contingent will be sure to call you Mr. Anderson.
Well, south of the border of the Canadian border.
Also,
Yep, that's where America
But
is.
north
Good
of the
job, Eric.
Canadian border, you'll call me Dr. Anderson, though, right?
Why are we calling you Dr. Anderson?
I don't know. I mean, I just want some title. If you're
You want an elevated title from Mr.
right, but even though I'm not a real doctor, but I'm like a music act doctor or something. It's my stage name.
Mr. D. Anderson Esquire.
It's like the guy in Prince's band in Purple Rain. Like, I'm a doctor, but I'm not.
Yeah,
really
you want to be a musical doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. I get it. I know what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm just on. Maybe Dr. Giggles just put me on this path. I don't know.
I didn't know acid was making a comeback in Minnesota, but
These are trying times, Scott. Trying times.
Okay, Derek. Well, why don't you tell us about your sequel that never got
yes,
made?
please.
Well, originally I was thinking The Lost Boys, but technically we did get a sequel years later with The Lost Boys: The Tribe. So
They have 2 sequels.
That's true. And The Thirst. That's right. So I mean, we do have a trilogy there technically. I was thinking more of like the Lost Girls movie that Joel Schumacher had mentioned that they should have done. But I guess I'm going to skip over that, even though that is also a movie I would have loved to have watched. And I'm going to say
before you pitch that out, then let me just tell you, if you haven't seen it, if you were looking for a spiritual all women Lost Boys, see Bit, because it will scratch that itch and then some.
Yes, I'm glad you meant. Yes, actually, I did get a chance to see that. You are right. That is 100% like
That's a blast.
Like a spiritual sequel in that direction that I think they were going to go for. And yes, everyone should check that out if you get a chance. And so I think I'm going to go more the zombie route other than vampires. And I'm going to go with, it's a kind of a toss up for me, but I think I'm leaning towards Dance of the Dead, which I know I've talked about a lot on this show before. And
Time out, Derek. You're saying you wish there was a sequel to a sequel?
Wait, well, Dance of the Dead isn't a sequel.
Yeah, no,
That's not part of the. Sorry, there's so many of those.
It's
of
not
the
a
dead.
Romero
No, it's
Dance
not.
of the Dead.
Oh yeah, sorry, because Diary of the Dead is such a serious thing that we should be taking.
First, he made you read his diary. Now
He
wants
makes
to
you
see
dance.
dancing.
I couldn't unmute fast enough. I was tripping over my my mute.
Oh
button.
my gosh.
See, this is what happens when I want to dunk too badly on Derek. I just wind up tripping over myself.
Nothing but brick, baby. Nothing but brick.
So Dance of the Dead is the movie I would like to sequelize, but it's kind of so Greg Bishop, the director, we did an anniversary screen for it a couple of years ago, and he had talked about how him and the writer Joe Ballerini, who just wrote Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, they had like a sequel all written out. And so I just want to see their version. It's basically like years in the future after the first movie ends. And it's kind of set up that we're going to see the survivors from the first film go to the power plant and try to shut down the whole like source of the zombie infection. But I just had such a blast with the movie and the characters. And I would love to see in some world, if we could see a sequel to that, I think that would be awesome. I don't know if we ever would, but I mean, I know a lot of people that were involved with that movie would, I think, be open to doing something and enjoyed the experience. So that would be, I guess, my third, as I ramble, my third option, Dance of the Dead, I would love to see sequelized. And that's, I just give them the money and let them go do what they want to do.
So let me get this straight. Dance of the Dead was not part of the 28 Days Later series.
Not that one either. No.
No? Okay.
28 Dance of the Dead.
Robert Carlyle leaves his wife at the Dance of the Dead.
It's actually a prequel that shows how they met at the prom.
Before the pandemic, before the outbreak.
Before
Exactly.
the outbreak, they danced.
But there was a zombie outbreak and then another zombie outbreak.
I think they danced and then they died.
And then they
Almost gotta
came
go
back,
with the
and then
quote.
there was another.
I think that
Zombie
I
attack?
think you start the first half with the first half's a dance movie. It's basically like Step Up or something.
Like Footloose.
Yeah, or Footloose. That's how I envision this.
Okay.
And like you frame it where it's like the scene where he's about to eat her face when she's strapped to the chair, but like it fades into them as kids and they're like coming together for a kiss.
Oh, they remembered. Which makes him not bite her face off, which is important.
Oh no, he still bites her face off. It just
Oh.
makes it that much more tragic.
That's horrible.
Because see, the twist is in the previous movie, she had bitten his face off.
Oh, I see.
So
it's
you
really
wouldn't
like
even be expecting it in this movie.
wait, is
that
this
to
a sequel to Face Off?
Yes.
No, it's the sequel to 28 Weeks Later.
Which is a prequel to Face Off,
It
which
unifies
is the spiritual successor to
unifies these
Dance of the
movies.
Dead.
Yes,
Ah.
it unifies these movies.
It's all part of the Brian is an idiot cinematic universe.
Oh boy, that's
That was a long
big
way to get.
universe.
That was a long way to get to the connection, but we did it.
That's a very vast universe.
It all ties together. That's the important thing.
Oh my god.
We need like Neil deGrasse Tyson in here to explain Brian's universe to us.
No, it's that kid playing with the snow globe in my head.
Got it.
Okay.
I have a monkey playing with his shit in mine. So
Ouch.
sometimes painting, you know. Sometimes like a little ashtray.
So, Jonathan, what's your choice for your
I was just letting him
to
go.
see?
I just wanted the visual was just stuck in my head. So my sequel that didn't get made is going to be a sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I always have talked about this movie when it's like when it there's like a fork in the road and it's like your life could go one way or another. I always have mentioned that my parents gave me the option when I was young of going to see Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Bambi, and I picked Roger Rabbit. Kind of blew my young mind. Had it been Bambi, we may not be here. There may be no Daily Dead. So anyway, so I really loved Roger Rabbit growing up. there was never a sequel. The movie was a huge hit. So my idea for a sequel, if I were to do it and budget and cast weren't an issue, is that I would move it maybe 20 years into the future. Because for those who haven't seen the movie, and I highly recommend it, it takes place in the 40s. And so you have all these 40s toon characters. And I think it's great because it kind of fits that the noir feel they're going for. But I'd move mine into the 60s because I think we have a lot of things we can play with. We have, obviously, with the 60s, we got the Jetsons, we got the Flintstones. More importantly, at the end of the 60s, we get Scooby-Doo. So I would do something that's like, like who killed Roger Rabbit? And Roger Rabbit's dead. Eddie Valiant's older. And he's not as quick as he used to be. And he needs to turn to Mystery Inc. to help solve this crime. And so mine would venture more into horror territory. And I'd figure out a way to bring Scooby-Doo in. And call it a day.
Yeah, he's going dark. But actually, like, it's dark, but it's not like out of the realm of kind of the dark undertones of that first movie. Because coincidentally, I actually just watched that again this weekend. And the only thing that I would ask is you need to find a way to bring back Judge Doom, because he is still one of the most terrifying villains of any movie I've ever seen. There's something about that reveal with that little blonde tuft of hair that just freaks me right the hell out. So, yeah, you went dark, but I'd kind of like to see that.
Maybe Dr. Doom. Is it Dr. Doom?
Judge Doom?
Dr. Doom. Yeah, maybe that Marvel villain will come in and no, of course, Judge Doom. Maybe Judge Doom has an offspring who carries out revenge, and they're responsible for killing Roger.
Yeah, we got the whole Scooby-Doo angle, so we can have some, fake ghosts that turns out to be, character X. So we can have some fun with that as well.
I thought maybe Eddie was just checking. There's supposedly a ghost at the amusement park. If you're going to go full Scooby-Doo, that could be the mystery.
Yeah. Like
Eddie just solves a Mystery Inc. mystery.
Yep. Yeah. I can see that.
And also, are you going fully into this and like, is Roger Rabbit indeed dead, or is there going to be some kind of last minute reveal?
Well, I can't say that. You got to watch the movie.
He's not dead. And they probably tell you a quarter of the way through that he's not really dead.
And that's a second act reveal.
Yeah, well, you got to watch. You got to pay for the admission ticket.
I mean, listen, you're going to want the broadest appeal possible to make back your money. So you better have that rabbit alive.
I mean, I'm not saying he is or he isn't.
Didn't you guys see what happened to Turner and Hooch? It's like Tom Hanks always said, they shouldn't have killed the dog.
Oh,
because it killed the movie.
Yeah.
So don't kill the rabbit.
Talk about bringing down the room again.
Wait, so what's the rating? Like, what are you thinking?
X.
Like PG-13?
Oh no, this movie will be along the lines of the other one. I think the other one was probably PG. This one will probably be PG-13. So I'm not going with the R-rated one.
Will there be an unrated director's cut? Hashtag release the James cut.
Right.
Which you will have to then produce entirely because it doesn't exist.
Yes, in the future I'll have to.
Oh my God! Well, if Zemeckis is doing the sequel, he can put the little dolls from Marwen in there too. That'll be trippy. Steve Carell doll.
Oh my gosh!
Oh God, that's what you're
that
talking
took me
about.
a second there.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be interesting.
The Welcome to Marwen dolls.
Oh my gosh!
Get those in there too.
And then can we put the toys from Small Soldiers in there too? Just for the heck of it.
Because they were apparently around in the 60s.
Yeah, we're still in the 60s, but we could, if you want to implement time travel. I mean,
is it in the 60s?
Yeah, because we only want, because we need Eddie Valiant to still be around. So advancing the story 20 years makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, but what about someone throws a hole against the wall, Eddie walks through it, and all of a sudden he's in modern day?
It could be the future. Yeah, there you go.
Whoa. Just that easy.
Well, yeah, it's a cartoon. Someone throws a future dot against the wall. You walk through it.
Dimension or time travel solved.
Yeah. Well, a dimension dot. There you go.
There you go.
I'm picturing some kind of like one of those like screwball montages where like he's going through multiple holes, and like in one he comes out in the middle of Small Soldiers, and another he comes out in the middle of a Pixar movie, and another he comes out like really going super meta. So like he's starting off, he's talking to the mystery, the Scooby-Doo gang. He comes out in the middle of Scoob from this year, and it's real confusing. Yeah.
Another one, he comes out in the middle of a Roman orgy.
He's in the middle of the Caligula.
I'm sorry.
And it just became an R rating, if not more.
I'm lonely.
Aww.
Aw.
Well, Scott, it's because you say things like that.
Okay, so with our first question wrapped up, we're gonna move to question number 2. Denise asks, "What's our favorite Christmas horror movie?" Obviously, we're in the what do you call it? Holiday horror period where it's acceptable to watch holiday horror movies all year round, but we tend not to do it. So I dusted off my stack of holiday horror movies and I brought them out. They were a little sad because I really should watch them more than just 1 month out of the year. But anyway, I digress. We're going to turn things over to Bryan. And Bryan, what is your all-time favorite holiday horror movie?
Well, I'm actually wondering, Scott, do we have the same one?
Oh, that doesn't matter.
All right.
Wait, do 3 of us
on
have the
trial
same one?
Oh, probably.
Let me ask, is yours from 1981?
I think so.
No.
Uh-oh.
No.
Is yours a character study disguised as a slasher movie?
Yes.
Does yours feature an ending where a van goes flying off into the clear dark sky?
There's 4 of us. No.
Well, there's at least 3 of us. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, it is Christmas Evil. I absolutely adore that movie. It is such a it blends the atmosphere. It's such a holiday movie, but it's also just such a dark and weird movie. And why am I blanking on his name? Brandon Taggart. I just think of him as Fiona Apple's dad. So he is just like, it is a one-man show. Like there might as well not be anybody else in this movie because you are just transfixed on him. And it's just everything about it it's probably like the best way for me to get into the holiday mood because it's just such a creepy Christmas atmospheric movie. Plus I love just the nostalgia. Well, I can't say nostalgia because I wasn't alive, but just like the old bar that just has like wood paneling all over it and the soft focus throughout the movie and just everything about it. And it's one of those ones where I just kind of happened upon it on a lark. I don't remember it necessarily being one that was recommended. I think I saw it actually right before Scott put out his classic holiday poem, an ode to it. And I was getting ready I was actually going to say like, hey, I want to write an article on this. And they said, no, Scott's got it covered. And boy, did he. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I love Scott's poem dedicated to that movie. And it's one that I got to watch every year.
Tamika, you want to say something while we're on Christmas Evil?
I just love that there's 3, I think 3, I can math,
3
of us that picked this movie because it's so deserving. I agree with Bryan. It's a slasher movie, but and not to say by saying but it's more than that. I'm in no way belittling slasher movies because I love them, but it is a character study, And I didn't really think about that until Bryan said it. But yeah, I have to watch this movie at least once a year. And I got a really cool Christmas Evil shirt from Cavity Colors last year that I love. I love wearing it in public because people are looking at it because there's the part where he basically flies a van into the night sky. And that part of from the film is on the shirt. And so I love to see people look at my shirt like, is that Santa flying is that a fan? It's so good.
Yeah, that shirt design is great. I didn't get it, but I should have. And now I'm feeling sad.
Oh no.
But
We
no,
can share it.
I think what I like about this, I mean, I don't consider it, and I have no problem with those who do, but I don't really consider it a slasher as much as, like, I don't think it follows those, like, a specific formula in doing that. And I think that kind of goes back to what, we've been saying, is that this really focuses on character. And it really is brilliantly executed. And so, we kind of, deal with Harry, who's, trying to do his best in his own way, and it doesn't work out. I think it's interesting because, when a lot of people were talking about, Joker, and they were talking about that movie's influences. And of course, people instantly were talking about King of Comedy and about Taxi Driver, but it's also really, really close to Christmas Evil. So I'd be surprised if when they were, looking into, what movies to watch for a great, character study and a character's downward spiral, that this wasn't, on the list.
I also think the best trick they play in this movie is that they build up for, I'd say, the first 50-60% of it before he actually completely goes off the deep end and starts killing people. Now we're going to hit the gas and we're not going to stop till we get to the end of this movie. But they pivot and they have him wipe out, like, I think 3 or 4 people using various toys as implements of destruction. But then he starts going to other places and you still don't know what he's going to do. And they keep that sense of unpredictability. Like, is he there with, are you going to get your present or are you going to get a lump of coal, AKA get your throat slashed or some such. So they play it so perfectly and in a way that's unexpected. So it's, I only use the phrase slasher just because, like, that's almost like the closest you can come to, like, a horror subgenre about that approximates what it is. But yeah, I don't really agree, like, with even myself calling it that it's a full-on slasher. But it's just got, like, some of that slasher window dressing that I think kind of draws people in. And whether or not they're going to stick around is based off of whether or not they're willing to go on this ride.
It's a drama, right? It's a drama that horror tries to, like, barge through with an axe every once in a while. But it's so organic the way that it does it. And that's why it seems so surprising when you don't know what's going to happen next, because they haven't set up the normal buffet of victims, right? In the right order, right? There's the buns and then the cold cuts and then the egg salad and then the roast beef, right? It's all set up usually in such a uniform fashion. But this is more of like some indie drama. This would be like an A24 movie.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
I could see it as an A24 movie.
Yeah, totally.
People be like, that ending, like,
It
I
has
didn't.
that sensibility.
Nowadays, it would be like the ending explained. What does the ending mean?
And that's the thing. Like, I feel like A24 would turn that into something a little bit too up its own butt and kind of, like, overly pretentious. Like, there's still like a definite sleaze
It's a
factor.
Blumhouse. It's a Blumhouse.
But there's still, like, is that just me, or is it, like, I think there's still a definite sleaze factor,
No,
or like a
definitely.
grimy factor to Christmas Evil.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Long story short, if you haven't seen this yet, definitely watch it this holiday. I think everybody here at Corpse Club has been beating the drum for this movie for a while. And thanks to Scott, make sure to read his, and we'll be resharing it as well, but to read his dust off for this is excellent. And,
Well, yeah, it's the 1 week I don't have to write something.
So yeah, make sure to check that out. But yeah,
and
that's
it is
Long game, baby. Playing the long game.
I wanted to double check, but it is streaming on Shudder. So if you have Shudder, you can see Christmas Evil.
perfect. And then, yeah, Vinegar
Outstanding.
Syndrome also still has it. I think so. They had a sale, so I don't know if they still have it. But
Yeah, makes good stocking stuffer.
There you go.
It's a cinema.
A ringing endorsement. I feel like I'm the odd one out here because I'm the one person who didn't choose that movie as my favorite Christmas horror movie.
Well, I
No,
didn't.
Scott didn't either. So we're
wait.
going to Scott.
Yeah, I was incorrect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay. Okay.
So just hold your water
Yeah,
there, young
I'm
Missy.
sorry, Derek. We're gonna go to Scott.
Spit take. Okay. Wow.
As I was saying,
Right.
I'm going to go with Black Christmas, the original from '74.
Should have known you'd go with the Canadian movie.
Well, it honestly has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that even as a grown-ass man, I need to watch this one with the lights on.
The Christmas lights?
And Christmas lights, all the lights on, all the doors open. It's just so effective in its suspense. Oh, it's such a tight movie. It's so taut and filled with tension, great performances, a killer that you never know who it is, which makes him even more terrifying through the years. It can't be beat.
Yeah, I agree. The fear factor in that one is super disturbing. You kind of think like, oh, it's going to be I don't know if you necessarily think it's going to be a fun movie, but it's so unnerving by the end that it is. And the way, you just hear the howling of the wind and the deep breathing and the phone calls and everything, like the sound design in that movie is so punishing and so atmospheric that it truly is like you have to watch something else after watching that movie because I just can't end on that note, but it's so well done too.
Well, I mean, it's like Rose Byrne's character in Bridesmaids when she says, well, it's a Fritz Bernays. What else more is there to say? That's what Black Christmas is. What's your favorite Christmas horror movie? Well, it's Black Christmas, of course.
Now, a little less eye gouging than Black Xmas, but it's forgivable.
And no flesh Christmas cookies.
Right. I mean, I guess it couldn't be perfect, but it ticked most of the boxes.
It's fine the way it is.
I actually still remember the first time I saw Black Christmas because I actually came to that one pretty late. I was probably in like my mid to late 20s. And it was just kind of, I think it was around Christmas season, but I just happened to be like, I think it was a lazy morning on a Saturday. I was lying in bed and I actually just started watching it on my phone, just kind of figuring like, I'll kill 15 to 20 minutes. I'll get up and I'll, if I like it, I'll finish it at another point. Cut to like the entire runtime. I've been sitting here holding my phone up above my head with just like my jaw dropped the entire time because this movie is just like absolute gravitas. Like you can't start this movie and not finish it. It's definitely up. It doesn't quite, just for no particular reason, I like Christmas Evil a little bit more. But Black Christmas is so far up there. And I so much appreciate the way that they turn like very standard Christmas decorations and somehow make that lighting seem very sinister. Like it starts off, it's like, you see this sorority house and it's completely decked out for the holiday and it looks just kind of like very throwback, very welcoming, very warm. And they don't do anything to change the house, but just like, I think it's just as the context of the safety kind of seeps out of the house, everything just seems so much more sinister without them actually having to do anything to the set design. And I just love the way they kind of pivot that and just make it seem so much more malevolent than it started in the beginning.
Oh, and a big old chef's kiss from me for the whole giallo-ness of that unicorn kill. That's just perfection.
Bob Clark knew what he was doing, and that was years before A Christmas Story, so he's got that holiday nailed down.
I thought you were going to say, and that was years before Baby Geniuses.
That's just on a whole nother level on its own. I will say too, the more I watch that movie, the more I appreciate Mrs. McHenry, the house mother. She's like she becomes my favorite character now, just because she hides booze all over the house.
I was gonna say, Derek, do you also have hooch just hidden in various, like in the toilet tank in your bathroom?
Let's just say I tell the plumber he doesn't have to look in that part of the toilet.
You can look at other parts of the toilet, but just not that part.
Yeah, don't open the tank. I left it
where all the
there. You
parts
don't
are.
Where all the parts are.
Okay, so Derek, we'll move right on to you.
All right.
Christmas horror movie.
Well, I think it might be pretty obvious. Yeah. I'll find a way to work that in there. I think I'm going to go with a little more recent one, and that would be Michael Dougherty's Krampus. I feel like I need to give some love to this movie. I think it's almost unfair how good Dougherty was, not only at giving us the definitive Halloween anthology, but then a few years later making, I would say, one of the definitive Christmas horror movies. I think it's just the perfect blend of humor and horror. I feel like it completely captures the chaos of the holidays, from like this big family gathering of all these different personalities to how it starts off with the crazy like Christmas Eve shopping and the consumerism aspect of it. And then it really just boils down to like this awesome like creature feature on so many levels of the gingerbread men and the stuffed animal, and then Krampus himself or itself. So I think it just works on so many levels. It's so beautiful to watch. I mean, the production design in that movie it's so gorgeously horrifying that I think it's so fun to unwrap that. It's one of those movies I want to watch every year, and I haven't really gotten around to seeing it in recent years, but I think we're gonna get the whole family to sit down and watch it this year, and I'm really excited to do that. I know we lost Conchetta Farrell too this year, and I think she's so great in that movie. So yeah, I think that's gonna be my pick.
That's a great pick, and that's a great idea. I'm gonna bring that one out for the adult fam. This year as well, because we haven't seen. I haven't seen it in a few years either, for sure.
Yeah, Christy and I just watched that one a couple weeks ago. I think it was when I told you about grabbing that stack of movies. It was the first one we picked. What I really love about this is that such care was taken with the mythology and the creature design. Obviously, you have Wedo working on this, who was also working on Lord of the Rings, and you can tell that they didn't like. They took that same level of care when working on this project. I love the design of the elves, and you can tell there's a backstory there that you want to know more about. I love how we never see the face of Krampus. We see he's got a mask over it, and I think that was just such a clever touch as well. And then from the gingerbread designs to the toys and stuffed animals and whatnot that kill you. This movie is just so much fun. It's one of those things where, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I love when I go see a movie and I'm like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, this is an instant classic. I will watch this every year. And this was one of those movies.
I wasn't sure if I told the crew that I came around on this movie, because I remember when it first came out, I was not a fan.
That's right. You did not like it. I remember that.
Yeah. And then
so what
pushing
happened?
Against the tide.
I know.
And
because you guys always do this to me. You somehow convert me to your side. And I think you just wore me down. And I think my initial issue is that I didn't like how unlikable the characters were. And then I think it was Scott who said, well, I mean, the point is they're insufferable. That's why what happens to them happens, because, well, they were, they're bad. The movie's called Krampus. And I thought, okay, that's a good point. And Krampus does look really cool, and the special effects are really cool. And those little gingerbread men,
they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're so cool looking, and they're so bad. Yeah, they remind me of those Sour Patch Kids of the Sour Patch. Yeah, from those commercials.
Yes.
They're sweet and they're sour. Yeah.
Plus, I just want to give some props to Adam Scott. Like, you could tell me that there was going to be a movie coming out where Adam Scott just kicks a puppy for 95 minutes and I would go and see it.
I would not.
No, sir.
Nor do I think he would be.
With that.
Nor do I think he would be in one. But the point stands that I enjoy anything he's in is better for having him in it.
But you prefer it if he's torturing an animal.
Well, I mean, yeah, that would be ideal. But I understand that that would be frowned upon in some circles, so he might not commit to that.
You just air quoted there too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Bunch of prudes.
Going all the way back to Hellraiser Bloodline.
Dude,
he makes things better.
I actually I noticed him in Hellraiser Bloodline for whatever. I think it's because he's got a very distinctive jaw. So whereas a lot of people find out later on that, oh, Adam Scott was in Hellraiser Bloodline. For me, it's, oh, this guy that was in Hellraiser Bloodline is getting better and better roles. This is cool.
An early fan.
Yes.
Long before Parks and Rec.
I've got a very, very tasteful altar in my home office where I like to look at him while I'm kicking puppies.
Don't kick puppies.
I mean, generally, it's a bit of an oxymoron to say a tasteful altar, but I'll allow it.
But yes, and I would say, it holds up. I can't believe it's already been 5 years since it came out because I think the day this episode is released will be the 5th anniversary of Krampus, and I remember the hype around it was so big and how cool it was that we actually had a Christmas horror movie to go see in December in theaters, and then last year we had the Black Christmas, the new Black Christmas to see in theaters. So we've had some Christmas horror in recent years, which is fun.
It's actually been 14 years. It's 4 regular years, and then 2020 counts for 10 years.
Yeah,
right. I forgot you have to do the math there.
So 2015, it's been 14 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It does feel like 2015 was more like 2005.
Yes.
So that actually adds up pretty nicely.
Yeah, it seems like ages ago. Okay.
Good times.
Yeah.
This is
Thanks,
the
Scott.
happiest depressing episode we've ever done.
Okay, so let's move on then. We have Brad who asks us,
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Brad. Is there a celebrity that you've always wanted to meet, but haven't? And I'd also add to that, it could also be interview. Is there anybody that we do regular interviews on Daily Dead, and of course, Heather does them on Corpse Club. But is there anybody that you've wanted to meet that you haven't? Anybody you've wanted to interview that you haven't? We'll start with Bryan.
So I guess this actually harkens back to our New Year's resolution episode, because I've only got 29, 30 days to make this happen if it's going to be a 2020. So legitimately it's 2020. So I have 3 or 4 years to get this done.
That's great.
For those who remember way back in January of this year, one of my resolutions, I'm at 2 out of 3. I've just about got the number of new 2020 movies that I said I was going to see. I'm almost there. We did our Hellraiser retrospective, but the one thing that I don't have lined up yet is that I really, really want to interview Larry Zerner, who you might know as the guy who played Shelley in Friday the 13th Part 3. And I've been one of the few people who's a bit of a Shelley apologist. He's super obnoxious, but he's kind of that brand of obnoxious that I was when I was his age. So I get it. I don't think I was quite to that level. But it's actually more as the different documentaries and stuff have come out and they've done interviews with Larry Zerner, he just seems like a really interesting and cool dude. And I also really love that he's pivoted into entertainment law, and he's very kind of vocal and very enthusiastic about some of the different law-based stories of the day through social media. So like he's the one keeping everybody up to date on the Friday the 13th lawsuit that's been going on legitimately for years, not even by 2020 terms. He's been keeping track of kind of the similar thing that was wrapped up a lot more quickly with Clive Barker and the Hellraiser series. And he just seems like an interesting laid back dude. And I want to talk to him at some point in a totally non-creepy way. And it's fairly straightforward, but yeah, at some point, my goal is to interview Larry Zerner. No idea what we'll talk about, but it will be fun.
Have you reached out to him yet?
I have not yet.
Well, why?
I don't know, Scott. Why you gotta shame me? That's not very nice.
No.
Now's the perfect time too. There's a little downtime between the holidays. People aren't working as much.
Now.
Yeah, the time. This is a good couple weeks to inquire.
Yeah.
All right.
When I
reach out.
Listen on Facebook, Adrienne King was coming to Calgary for the Calgary Horror Con. I reached out to her directly on Facebook and said, "Could I have an interview with you when you come?" And she's like, "Sure. Just when I get there, get in touch with me." I
remember that interview too.
I took that shot and boom. We've been great friends ever since.
Well, then I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll go 3 for 3 of my resolutions this year.
Yeah, man, you got this. Got this, baby.
You know what's funny about that, Scott, is I think it was like that same year you talked with Adrienne. I really wanted to interview her when she came to Minneapolis for Crypticon, and I was at I talked to Tom Atkins and Zach Galligan, and my third stop was going to be Adrienne King. It was like the final hours of the convention. I ended up staying at Tom Atkins' table too long, and by the time I got over there, she was gone. And I missed out, and I was like, no. And then I saw that you got to talk to her, I think later that year. And I'm like, all right, well, at least someone got to talk to her.
Lovely lady.
Yeah, she's great.
Lovely lady.
She is awesome.
We had beer. We had beers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Good times.
That's Calgary hospitality.
Good times.
I'm jealous.
Anyway, Bryan, take that shot.
Yeah.
I think you would do an awesome job interviewing him, and I too would like to know more about him.
Same.
There's a lot to talk about too.
Okay, so Tamika, how about you? Who's someone that you always wanted to meet or interview?
It's cool. It's still cool if I pick two people because I can't decide.
Yeah, of course you can pick 2.
No.
Okay. I promise. I'll make it quick. Okay. So shout out to Bryan. Thank you very much. But I would love to interview her. The actress's name is Renee Charles, but her character's name is Sissy from Friday the 13th, Part 6. I just love the Friday movies, and I always dreamed of like being in one of them and getting like a cool death, and I love that she's like one of the few Black women in the franchise. And I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, I just liked her hair and I thought she was really cool. So I would just love to know what she's up to now. And, like what's her life been like since she was in Part 6, and what were some of her experiences being in the film? What was like I hope this isn't weird to ask someone, but like, what was her death scene like? Like, I don't know. Like, I just want to know weird stuff like that. So I would love to meet her and just like interview her and just pick her brain about just not just movies, but just life. I'm just interested in that. And Tony Todd, because he is a legend and he is everything that is good. Just ask him about life, his favorite film projects. I would love to ask him for advice too. I don't know why I want to have like a heart to heart with these people, but I don't know. That's just how I am, I guess. I just want to, they're humans. So I just want to know about like the human stuff too, like what their life is like. And especially Tony Todd. I mean, he's been in so many awesome franchises. I'd have to ask about Final Destination because I just think it's one of the few almost perfect franchises. But yeah, those are my two people.
Nice.
Yeah. I thought so.
Yeah, there's it's amazing. Like I always forget how many movies Tony Todd is in, and then I look somehow I'll always end up on his IMDb page. I'm like, holy crap, he was in a lot of stuff. And then I'm like, oh it's like, and he's so good too. Like he disappears into his roles, which it's there's so many stories there. And Sissy was a great character in Jason Lives. She actually has like one of the coolest and creepiest Jason encounters, I think, of like any of the Friday the 13th movies.
Oh yeah. I mean, she's kind of just chilling by herself and reading a prawn. I don't know if we're allowed to say that word on the podcast. Just like reading like a fake prawn magazine and with like
little
her
word
cute
scramble.
little like the word scramble. I know.
I'm like, what's wrong with a prom magazine?
Oh, she meant porn.
Oh. Whoa.
I didn't know if we were allowed to say the word, so I just like scrambled the letters, you know.
No, it's okay. You can say it.
Okay.
It's cinema, Tamika.
Wait, what was that?
It's cinema.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I'll say that next time. But yeah, she's like by herself, just eating popcorn, minding her own business. And then she hears a noise outside. I'm like, oh no, don't go to the window. Don't ever do that. No.
Oh, I know. And it was like stealth Jason too. Like we've seen him crash through windows, but that was like even creepier because he did it so quietly.
Yeah. Just like
Snap.
yoink.
Yeah. Like, whoa, that was really effective.
I wish it had actually gone yoink. That would be
Yoink.
awesome.
Then when he twisted her head, it goes like,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Change all the sound, take all the sound from the Scooby-Doo show and put it in the Friday the 13th.
No, but part 6 it would fit because they were trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I'll
trying to
put
be
it
like
in any of
lighter.
them. It would be just as fun, I think, really.
Maybe if it was like a comic book, that's what Jason is thinking when he kills people. He has all these sound effects like Looney Tunes.
no, I'm just picturing in part 4 when Paul gets the harpoon gun to the crotch as he's lifting him up, just a slide whistle going.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. I was picturing like the fast pedaling feet when Annie falls out of the Jeep in the first one, and then she runs away, and it would be the fast pedaling feet.
Humming.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good times.
Good
Yes.
times. Good times.
Good times. Okay, so we're moving on to you, Scott.
I did get a chance to meet this gentleman, my favorite director of all time, for about 30 seconds for a photo op. And of course, I tried to cram as much praise into that 30 seconds as I could while the picture was being taken. And I looked like a complete buffoon. If they had like a Make-A-Wish for just like drooling idiots, this would have been my wish, and I got it to meet John Carpenter. So I would love to have a chance to interview John Carpenter. I don't really know video games. I don't really know basketball. So I guess we could talk about movies.
Well, he's a gamer. He might be a Crash Bandicoot fan.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to take that chance.
It's more of a Spyro guy, it turns out.
It's more of a Spyro. So
the interview is over.
That would be my dream interview for sure.
Nice. That would be awesome.
For someone who's dead, though, my dream interview would probably be, it would be Vincent Price and William Girdler. And
who's the second one?
William Girdler.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So for doing people that are no longer with us, I wouldn't even want to interview him. I would just want to hang out and meet Angus Scrimm for like 15 or 20 minutes or,
right.
the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Now I'm thinking. Well,
Yeah. Scanning.
I want to get on it too.
In the meantime, we can go to Derek. Derek is somebody you want to meet or interview.
Well, I'm
Joey Lawrence.
Joseph Lawrence, sir.
Sorry, you can talk about Urban Legends Final Cut.
Oh, fantastic. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that other than the Lawrence brother trio, for excluding Disney stars, I think I would go with someone that you have run into, Jonathan, and I will admit I am jealous of this because I was in the vicinity when this happened, but I was not there when it happened. And that is R.L. Stine, because honestly, I can't think of someone who was probably a bigger gateway drug to horror, other than I suppose there were like the Chucky and the Tremors and Silent Hill that my uncle introduced me to, and I was probably too young to experience all of that. But as if we're talking about like books, it was R.L. Stine was such a huge influence and is so inspiring. Just the fact that he's still cranking out Goosebumps books now, and he's still like now he's creating like graphic novels, and I know some of them the graphic novels, like they're bringing other writers and things like that, but it's still like I don't know, he's still like masterminding all of this stuff, and I just think it'd be fascinating to interview him, like almost like a Truffaut Hitchcock style, where we're just in like an apartment for a week, and I just do like an over deep dive on all the Goosebumps books and over analyze everything and ask him like, why the haunted mask? Like, why the thing under the sink? What was the metaphor there? And just really like, I feel like I would just drive him nuts. I feel like it would become a horror book.
It's more like a 60 Minutes interview than a
Yeah, that's what he wants. I'm digging this.
hard hitting. Jeez.
Yeah.
You have him sweating.
And I remember we were at I think it was Comic-Con like 2017, and if I remember correctly, Jonathan, like you and your brother Jordan were like in an elevator with R.L. Stine.
We were, yeah.
Okay.
And I was so sad because I'm like, Derek should be here.
Gosh, I would have been like sweating profusely and been like breathing heavily, and I'm sure I would have freaked him out, but it would have been worth it because
freak anyone out.
Would have been awesome. Would have been awesome just to you know what? Actually, I did see him when he walked through the lobby, but I didn't like talk to him or say hello or like here, autograph this Goosebumps I carry with me everywhere, you know, and nothing like that. But yeah, so that would be my pick. I think it would be really fun because he didn't even start writing like horror until he was like in his 30s or 40s, because he was in the industry, but he wrote like joke books throughout the 70s and like most of the 80s. So I'd love to hear about those days and like really, like, I don't know, just really get to know like the R.L. Stine before he was like the horror guy. And I remember I watched most of his masterclass series where he's like talking about how to write like for young readers. And he just had some like crazy stories in there where like him and his wife were working on a book together and she got mad at him, like locked him in a closet and and left or something like that. I'm like, whoa, I want to hear more about all this stuff about your days, the early days. But that would be my pick. I think there'd be a lot there to tap into.
I mean, and this one's doable. You should email somebody. I don't want to get too many details on the podcast, but you should email somebody. Like this one's doable. So like, we should figure this one out over the next couple of weeks.
That's going to be a Hallmark motivational card. Email somebody, Jonathan.
Email
I
somebody.
Go into more detail, and I'm like, this is being recorded.
And then it becomes a Hallmark Christmas movie. Email someone.
Yeah, but we should talk about this. Like this one isn't out of reach.
I do love the way we're all wistfully saying this, as if like, oh, if only we had some kind of a horror outlet that we could utilize to reach out to the people that we want to meet or talk to.
If only. There must be a way.
As we're talking in our support group here.
Damned if I can think of one. Let's move on.
If only R.L. Stine still released new things that he needs to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely a few options there. So we should talk about it. Yeah. And then you mentioned Masterclass. I mean, for anybody that hasn't check that out. That it is, and then they're not sponsoring us, but they do sales from time to time. But it's kind of worth it if you're looking at if you're looking at their writing process. You're a you want to be a writer, or you're a young writer that wants to basically hear these or get instruction from masters who have been in this industry for decades. They have Neil Gaiman has one, and then R.L. Stine, and I'd recommend both.
Nice.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. But yeah, so for mine, I picked one that was outside of horror, because like I said, we can reach out. Yeah, so mine would be Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel Studios, and I'd like to deep dive interview with him, because I've seen interviews where he talks about his plans for the MCU, and that's what a lot of people go into. But I'd love to hear more about his filmmaking strategy. In a lot of cases, Marvel revolutionized the way movies are made. Building in time for reshoots, having a cohesive, creative plan that spans decades, and then also I'd just be curious about how do you adapt this material? You have decades of source material, but Marvel's been so successful where other companies haven't, in adapting it in a way that feels if not directly looks like the comic characters and storylines, it feels true to the original creators. So yeah, I'd love to pick his brain for a few hours. I don't think I need a week like Derek you wanted with R.L. Stine, but if he wants to talk for a week, I'll take that too.
So that's how you get the police to pay you a visit, Derek, if you ask for a week with them.
True. I said I wanted to do Truffaut, Hitchcock, though. There's a lot of layers to peel away,
That doesn't sound any better.
This is Anderson Stein. Is this?
It is. It's I love. I want to take a super academic approach to it.
Jonathan, I think that would be a really interesting deep dive to take, because there are definitely things that you think about, or there are definitely things that I think about, and some of them are admittedly morbid, but it's something that was recently made relevant. And I'm not trying to bring things down, but this time I'll be the guy to do it, with a plan that goes, potentially a decade in advance. You are running a very real risk that, for whatever reason, the people that you have cast in these major roles won't be available due to any number of reasons, including death. And I think we saw that happen in a big way when Chadwick Boseman passed away earlier this year. And so I'd be interested to know, to what degree do they have and I don't mean for this to sound callous, but it's just kind of an interesting thing. I'd like to know about how the sausage is made. Are there contingency plans for that kind of thing, or do they just kind of roll with these unexpected, with these kinds of things as they come? And it doesn't necessarily need to be because someone passed away, but if you're planning out 10 years ahead, there are going to be things that are going to throw wrenches into those plans. So I'd just be interested to know, how do they navigate that?
I can. At least I can speak to part of that and say it comes down to road mapping. That when you're road mapping is a plan for the future. It's not necessarily fixed. And I think that's what Marvel's been able to do, is that they know they know what the next year is going to look like, right? And then they have it's not as clear what maybe 2 to 5 is going to look like. And then they have the broad strokes for 6 to 10. And so that's allowed them to kind of pivot as they need to. They didn't know if they were going to get Spider-Man for Civil War. So they knew that if that wasn't going to work out, they were looking at Daredevil. And so it definitely seems like they have these contingency plans in place, but I think it, like I said, is because they're not super rigid in their planning. But yes, I want to know more, as you can tell, and we can switch this podcast to the MCU, episode anytime.
/Alien.
Yes. / Schitt's Creek, Star Wars, and Sherlock from last episode.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you even have a Schitt's Creek sign-off, too, all ready to go.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And Brian and I are going to do a Phantasm podcast called Fanstasms. Look for it soon.
It's a working title.
It's a working title. It's in the early stages.
I like phantasms.
I just don't think I could say that multiple times.
I know. I said it once, and I'm like, that's it for that.
Phantasms. Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the next question. And as I'm doing this, and I'm looking at the time, I'm like, I'm not going to blast through the other reader questions we have. So we're going to split this, and we're going to end on this one because I feel like it's appropriate for the time of year anyway. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to do another installment of our listener mailbag. This way we don't have to cut any of the questions short. So we're going to end on a question from Philip, who asks, what are your gift recommendations for young horror fans? And before I turn this over to Bryan, I will say that, definitely, check out dailydead.com and make sure to look for the holiday gift guides that Heather Wixon has put together. Heather puts countless hours into research, and
they're the best.
And curating and picking not just it's not just about an exhaustive list, it's about the list of the right items for horror fans. And so there are tons of great book, movies, collectibles, ornaments. There's all kinds of things, and she also does a great job of highlighting indie artists, indie authors. So there are plenty of gifts that you can find here that, your loved ones are unlikely to have. So, like I said, first off, I would definitely recommend checking that out. And then, Bryan, I'll turn it over to you. Do you have any gift recommendations for young horror fans?
I mean, it's the obvious answer, but it's also the obvious answer. So it's the one I got to give. And it's the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book series. That is, of all the stuff that I remember as a kid, like in terms of movies, I was watching R-rated stuff way too early. So it was just like, it's hard to give me a gauge for like what is good horror stuff for a kid based off of what I saw, just because that probably wasn't meant for kids. But the one thing that I remember that was aimed at kids, but was also just so very distilled horror, and like it wasn't kids horror, it was just horror, was the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books. And there was never anything quite like it. I remember also as a kid, like because I was so obsessed with them, my parents would try and get me like other kids' horror, and like it all paled in comparison. I was like, well, why can't you get me something that's, just like this? It's because there was nothing like it. I do think there is a very specific kids audience for it. I think it's going to be like the kids got to be really into spooky stuff, because for a kid's book, these stories really don't pull any punches. So, if it's a kid that just kind of likes kind of spooky things, this might be a little overboard for them. But if you've got that kid who's like maybe a little too into horror, but you don't want to subject them to like R-rated movies just yet, I think that's probably the best way to go. And you got to make sure that you get the edition that has the original illustrations, because I knew they did a reprint at some point that had these different illustrations that just really isn't the same. And I think got so much flack that whoever published it actually looped back around and did the original ones again. It was a big part of my childhood, and it was a big part of a lot of people's childhood. They actually did a whole documentary about it, just about the influence that book series had on people's lives. So it's timeless too. So it's something that I don't think will feel dated if you buy it for your kid today.
Yeah, those books are great. My parents were cleaning out their basement the other day, and they found my copies of the 3 books. So I was so excited.
Nice.
Whoa.
I still have not read any of them.
Oh, I think you'd really like them. It's even more horrifying than The Woman Who Swallowed the Fly. It's like that level horror, but 10 times more intense.
And it's also interesting too, because it's like I'm feeling it, for as much as I love this, I'm blanking on the author's name, but he based it all off of folk horror, and he took the time to kind of craft it into a story that would be good for kids, while also, if I remember correctly, he would give like little kind of historical tidbits about where the folklore came from. So it was, there's even something that's kind of a little bit educational to it. Like, I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. And Alvin Schwartz, that was his name.
Yes.
So yeah, it's reading. Like, it's not trashy. It's not, and trashy is kind of one of those things that, like, you put in quotes anyway, because for me, reading's reading. But I think this even more so is something that, like, there's something of substance there that the kids can get from it.
Unless it's a prawn magazine.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah, those illustrations are like nightmare inducing, and yeah, it's like, I feel like once you give that to someone, a younger horror fan, like, there's no going back after that. If they're still in after reading those, then they're a horror fan for life, because it's almost like, okay, if you can survive this, if it's gonna be a little more out there than some of the other things you might have read at this point. But that's true gateway horror. Like, that's the thing. Like, if they're willing to step through that door, then you've probably got a horror fan for life.
Mm.
The spider scene, which they did in the movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's the one that gets
so
great. Spider horror.
I thought you said spider horror.
No,
you spider horror.
Let me emphasize the other. That's the thing. It's such
was that in that prawn version that you were reading?
Oh, no.
Don't look at me with your 8 eyes, you spider horror.
Oh my gosh! I told you.
Is it 8 eyes? How many eyes do they have? I don't know.
It sounds true to me.
I don't know if that's right. Well, somebody fact check this. Where's the fact checker?
We need a Corpse Club fact checker.
Yeah.
An eye for each leg.
I mean, I don't know. I know they have 8 eyes or 8 legs, but I don't know about the eyes.
I like Tamika's logic. It's backing up my theory.
That was the first thing that came up on Google. Let's see. Oh, they have 8. They do.
Oh yeah, most spiders do have 8 eyes.
They usually have 8 eyes.
No, we're taking it as a win, Tamik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Keyword usually. That means they can have
some
more.
have no eyes, and others have as many as 12, according to National Geographic.
Right, but they usually have how many?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong here. So yeah, take it as a win. They usually, so that's a majority.
We're taking the W, Tamika. We're taking the W.
High five.
I learned something today.
Also, spiders are God's greatest mistake. They're wretched creatures, and we would be better off without them.
And there's that.
Especially ones that hide in your car door handle. That image on Twitter. That you were so lovely enough to share that with all of us.
Was that the new one that came out? I didn't see it.
So I was, my kind wife knows that I am a big time arachnophobe, and I was having kind of a stressful day. So I actually went and did a de-stressing meditation session for like 15 minutes. And I came out of it, and there's a text alert on my phone, and I open it, and there's this meme of a giant spider that's hiding behind a car door saying, like, come on down to Australia. It's safe down here. It's just like, thanks. That's wonderful. You really showed your love on this one, and I appreciate you.
That's great.
I personally love her, and can hardly wait to meet her.
Oh, I'm keeping her as far away from you as humanly possible, Scott.
Oh, no. I mean, you moved closer to him, so I'm just saying. Okay, Tamika, we're moving on to you. Do you have a gift recommendation for younger horror fans?
I have 2 good ideas. So the first idea is the kids seem to be really into, and I say the kids in a joking way. I don't know why I intentionally age myself. It's so bizarre. But the kids like gaming seems to be really popular amongst a lot of age groups, but there's a game in particular that's called Don't Starve, and there's an offshoot of that game that's called Don't Starve Together, and it's a really creepy game. I see people playing it on Twitch, and I really enjoy just watching them play because I imagine that I would be terrible. There's a lot going on, but you're this tiny person, maybe like 3 or 4 feet tall, and you're dropped into this wasteland, and you have to not only survive, but you also you get to harvest things. That's what I'm looking for. Harvest things from the earth. You can grow things and then harvest them. And there are so many really cool obstacles that you have to survive. There's like trees that have giant eyeballs, and also sometimes it can be daylight, like daytime, but then it just changes into nighttime on some like Blair Witch type manipulating of the environment, of your environment. And there's this like really cool shadow that follows you sometimes, and you see these like little blinking eyeballs in it. I don't know if my description is giving it any sort of justice, but it is the coolest, creepiest thing. And it just seems like a really fun game. But yeah, it seems to be really popular. And I think that horror fans of any age, but especially the like sweet spot, like middle school, early high school, would love this game. But so it's called Don't Starve Together. My second gift, I know it's such a, but I pick Funko Pops because they're just the perfect gift, especially if you really enjoy collecting things. And there's so many of those little figures to choose from. So I think the choices and the possibilities are kind of endless there. And they're so cute. And there's different variations, like some glow in the dark, some are like limited edition. So that seems, I think those are my 2 gift suggestions. I feel good about that.
Yeah, those are good. I mean, I haven't played the game. Now I'm gonna have to check it out. I actually wrote a note for myself so I can look into it. But for Funko Pops, there are hundreds of horror Funkos to choose from. So yeah, I think that's a good one, or good ones, I should say. Let's move on to Scott. Scott, what is your gift recommendation for young horror fans?
That is a great question, Philip. And Tamika brought up a good point earlier about, I guess it depends what age group you're looking at. I have 2 grandkids, 3 and 2, 3.5 and 2. So, of course, I want them to get into horror. So we watch stuff like Hotel Transylvania, which they love. And there's other horror-themed little kid shows on the web. So they do get in some horror, so they at least get familiar with, your mummies and your vampires and your werewolves and everything like that. So I guess I'm not ready to make the leap into getting them horror gifts yet, but I would say probably in a couple years when they turn around 5 or 6, that probably start off with some Scooby-Doo DVDs, maybe. Something like that. Something in cartoon form that's, totally non-threatening. I mean, we've all experienced trauma as children watching horror stuff, and I'm actually a little reticent to take that leap, knowing what it put me through. But it was also kind of my trial by fire too, not to make it sound too important or totemistic, any kind of ritual. But probably a Scooby-Doo DVD when they're like 5 or 6, if that's the age that Philip's talking about. I think those are great gateway horrors for kids.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Scooby-Doo, and it's fun first and foremost, which I think is important, especially when it's a younger horror fan, I think you gotta have some accessibility there. And I think Scooby-Doo, I mean, I remember like my mom watched that growing up, and then when I was a kid, they would show the reruns of Scooby-Doo Where Are You on Cartoon Network. So I was watching that and the Flintstones, and I feel like that's a good like generational one. It spans, it's kind of timeless in a way, and it's there's an innocence there, but they're still having fun, and they're kind of introducing you to different spooky things. But like you said, it's hopefully not gonna traumatize anyone after watching it either.
Yeah, and when you pick that up for the kids, you also throw in your Amazon cart the live action movies for Dad,
Right.
so he can watch
gosh.
Linda Cardellini as Velma.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because on YouTube they were like, here's all the things that from those Scooby-Doo live action movies that actually, weren't so kid friendly. But there's a lot, obviously the weed jokes and some other things in there that they got away with a lot in those, I think. Not necessarily just for the kids, I guess you could say.
Wait, there's a weed joke?
Maybe one or two. The Mary Jane.
Now I'm gonna
Whatever
have
the
to
kids are calling
rewatch
it
the
these
movies.
Well,
Whatever the
everyone
kids.
everyone just assumed that Shaggy was a pothead
That's
Yeah.
true.
back in the original cartoon.
Yeah.
He was a hippie and he was always hungry.
And the Scooby
Always.
snacks.
That's right.
And it was James Gunn writing those, so he
Yeah.
had a lot of that humor, I think, carried over pretty well.
Yeah, but Linda Cardellini especially.
No love for Freddie Prinze Jr. No. Matthew Lillard. No.
The funny thing is, too, I don't have a lot to say about these movies because I don't remember them. I saw them once. I haven't seen them since, so I don't remember if I liked them. I don't remember a lot about these either one.
I'm kind of like, I remember I've seen them both. I like them both. If you asked me what happened in them, I would be able to tell you absolutely nothing about them.
Yeah, I don't have. I don't know. I guess I'll have to
What's
rewatch.
his name? Scrappy's behind it all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And
Just
the
kind of
first one.
brilliant.
And I can picture it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Now
Fun
I
for the
know
whole
2%
family.
about what happens in that
there
movie
you go.
because it
You're
didn't bring
caught up
back
to
any of
me.
the rest of it
You're caught up to me. But did I mention Linda Cardellini?
once or twice.
You did. Derek, we're moving over to you.
All right, so I totally love the pop vinyl figures idea. I feel like those are awesome designs, very like kid friendly, but you can get like the creepiest character and they can still be cute as a pop vinyl figure. So I definitely agree with that, Tamika. I also stay on brand and say Goosebumps always make for a great gift, whether it's for a younger horror fan or for grandma. Get them Goosebumps. Buy Goosebumps. Just
I love URL.
I mean, you really can't go wrong. And the great thing about that too is that you can get the original series, which ran from like 92 to 97. Those are all the classics, and then you can get like Slappy World and Horrorland and these kind of offshoots that Stein's releasing now. So.
Now, Derek, knowing how you've gotten access to Disney Plus, do you actually own Goosebumps books, or do you just leech them off your 11-year-old cousin?
No, I swear this is legit. I actually have Goosebumps books of my own that I've bought with my own money, and I'm not mooching off of anybody. So that I feel proud of. I feel like I felt like I was an adult when I started to buy Goosebumps books. Now, granted, it was for
At
like
the
a
age of
quarter.
24.
Right. It's never too late. That was a real transition into adulthood for me when I started to buy them for myself.
I used to love buying Goosebumps books, though. I liked all the raised covers, and
Oh my gosh,
and
yeah.
we'd trade them in school. So it was like currency in my grade school.
Oh, yeah. It's that and like Pokemon cards were really big around that time. It was
Yeah, it was a
a
little.
lot of deals being made on the playground.
Pokemon was a little before my time, but we just made Magic the Gathering, so
Oh, okay.
that was
Nice.
my game.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like and then also if we mentioned Scooby-Doo, I think another really fun one that's scary. It's like spooky, but not like really scary. Is Archie's Weird Mysteries, which ran for like 1 or 2 seasons. It was an animated show, and it is really good. It's kind of like Archie and the gang from Riverdale. Like every week they're dealing with a new supernatural threat. 1 week it's zombies. 1 week everyone turns into vampires. So it's kind of got like a Scooby-Doo vibe to it, except it's a little bit like a little more sci-fi thrown in there, but I definitely would recommend it. I used to watch it like before school on like the WB, which sounds
The WB.
Coming up next on the WB, another lame show that no one will see.
Oh, come on.
No, supernatural.
I ripped that directly from The Simpsons. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. So I think that's a good show, and you can get that like entire series on DVD. I don't know if it might be streaming somewhere too. So on one of the like 100 streaming services out there. And then if you're looking for like a video game or a PC game, I think Five Nights at Freddy's is a good one if they're a little bit older and maybe they're like, I don't know, 12, 13, and they're open to more like jump scares and a little more like in your face horror. I think that is a good one. I think a lot of people will find out that got them into horror just because, it still can't. I think the first one came out like 6 years ago or something like that. So I feel like there's a whole generation of people that maybe got into the horror genre because of that video game series. But I feel like it's very like basic, but really effective at what it does. And I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I just know from seeing like what the game's all about and seeing the reactions to it. And they've got like books that have spun out of that. I feel like that's a good franchise to tap into as well.
You know what? If I could really quick throw out one more suggestion, and it's an old school idea, but I think it would be great, and that's horror themed model kits.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love
to
those.
like to hand paint.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Those were a big thing when I was a kid. And I had a couple, and I knew a couple other people who had them. Not too many people, there weren't too many kids into that kind of stuff and where I was living. So, but yeah, I think that would just be a great activity.
Nice.
For any kid, really, or adult.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion for people that are artistically inclined. I tried model kits. I mean, I'm thankful for the model kits I received. I just recognized that I couldn't put them together or paint them. But no, I think it's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, it's something calming about it too. If you have the time for it, it's like a very like mellow activity.
Yeah, it's
Very,
like the horror version of clipping a bonsai tree.
Yeah, no, that's a really
like
great
that.
idea, and I don't hear enough people bringing that up. But yeah, I'm sure people are still making new model kits. I'm actually not very familiar with the marketplace these days.
No,
but I know
me
you can get them on
neither,
eBay. Yeah,
Now I want to get one just for myself.
there you go.
I do actually remember though back in the day, especially when I was a kid. I think Fango, they would come up a lot, and you would see like these really like detailed, like it would be like a pinhead bust that you would get and you would paint, or like Freddy Krueger. And I'm looking at like the detail and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to pull that off. Like I never even dreamed of getting one of those things because I knew it would just end in heartache.
Yeah, I painted some of them, and it was just like, I don't know how old I was. I was probably in my mid-20s. No, I'm just kidding. And it was like just flat color. It was just blue. It was just like because I had some Star Wars model kits, so it was just like
nice.
Just a blue, baby blue X-wing, and that's no shading. The windows were painted solid blue. It's just wasn't
like I feel like if I would have gotten like the Freddy Krueger one, like my mom would have been like, well, that's great, sweetie, but why does Mr. Krueger have a racing stripe going down the middle of his face?
Yeah, the big one, the big company when I was a kid was Aurora.
Yep.
Yeah, they were the biggest for the models. And they did the whole line they did Wolfman, they did Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, I think. Their kits were just beautiful.
You know, I remember like in Heather's book Monster Squad, a lot of the makeup effects artists in that book, it feels like that was their like initiation into horror. So
for sure,
it's pretty cool. It feels like it's kind of like a lost art, but it'd be especially now, like, you know, people are at home you know, right now a little more than usual. It'd be kind of a really cool activity to do now that you might have a little more time on your hands and you're at the house or whatever. It's not a bad idea.
I got to hit the hobby shop.
Boxing Day can't get here soon enough.
There you go. Well, you were talking about the Universal monsters, so I'm going to segue that into my recommendation for young horror fans. And if you're looking to purchase something for them, I would recommend the Universal Monsters Blu-ray collection. I think, you know, for me, it was always really important, and I lucked out that my parents showed me, they always liked the classics, and so that's what they started showing me. So I wasn't seeing like the newest horror movies that would come out. We would be watching, you know, I'd be watching Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and Universal Monsters, and then, you know, Vincent Price, and kind of working my way up. I think gives you a good foundation, because I'm running into more and more people these days that are turned off by older movies. And so if a movie is made after the year 2000, they get bored. They think visually it looks old. It's just like they don't have the attention span with them. And so if you're a horror fan and you have a child that you want to kind of get into this, I would suggest this is a good start. I think you can start with the Universal Monsters movies at a younger age. They were terrifying when they came out. They're less terrifying now. Definitely some of them. So, I mean, you could, even if you wanted to go backwards, some people may think it's sacrilege, but you could start with Abbott and Costello, and then kind of work your way into some of the scarier ones. But they have, you know, they have some great deals depending on what kind of set you want. If you want to just get the Dracula, or Frankenstein, or Mummy one, you can do that. If you want to get all of them, you can do that. But I think that's a great, you know, I think especially, like I said, if you're a parent that's a horror fan as well, a lot of people have gaps and they haven't seen all the Universal monster movies. Maybe they've seen, you know, the original Dracula and the original Frankenstein, Mummy, but they haven't seen, you know, Dracula's Daughter, or House of Frankenstein. So this would give you a chance as well to kind of, you know, see these deeper cuts.
Oh, and throw in Young Frankenstein too.
Yeah.
The dirty jokes will go over their head and they'll just enjoy the visuals.
Something for everyone.
And Mandolin Con.
And
We're not doing
Brian laughing in the back. And with that, this episode of Corpse Club comes to an end, and not a second too soon. I want to thank, before we get into, you know, thanking our crew, I do want to thank our listeners, our Corpse Club members, and I specifically want to thank AJ, Denise, Brad, and Philip for submitting your questions. There are other people who have submitted questions, and we will save your questions for a future episode in the very near future. If you didn't have a chance to ask a question, if you're listening to this now and saying, hey, I have a question, I'll give you all the contact info in a minute. It's not too late. Send us your questions. We want to thank Brian, our engineer, for helping us out each and every episode. You know, as I mentioned, we want to thank our listeners, including those who have signed up for a Corpse Club membership. Don't forget to go to corpseclub.com, check out our latest episode, check out our backlog of episodes, and you can also sign up to become a member, which will give you access to exclusive bonus content. We just released a bonus commentary for the Monster Club, and we have more content coming soon. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every rating and review really helps. And you can also find us on Google Play, SoundCloud, and all of your favorite podcast providers. We're recently added to Amazon Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. If you want to get in touch, if you have questions to send our way, you can reach out anytime at contact@corpseclub.com. On Twitter, also, we're at Daily Dead News and at Corpse Club. And on Instagram and Facebook, we're under Corpse Club as well. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, stay scary.